be here. My name is April, and I am a licensed social worker by trade. I am also a certified yoga instructor, and I'm the donor fund advisor for He Who Laughs Championing Mental Wellness. And as you can see on the slide, that is our logo, and the image beside of that is the image of my son, Isaac. He Who Laughs was our call to action when we lost Isaac to suicide on September 23rd in 2019. And I would be lying if I told you that just the months, the days, the year, just the time that it has taken to be able to gather and be able to speak to this, and that we had no clue, the family, that Isaac was struggling. Suicide pretty much kicked in our front door on the morning of September 23rd, when Isaac's younger brother called us and said Isaac was not answering his phone and he wasn't at work, which was very unusual. Isaac had a tremendous amount of love and deep regard for his younger brother. They were 11 months apart, and they have spent pretty much their whole life growing up together until that fateful morning. And in our home, Isaac, being the oldest, being a redhead, had a fiery temper, was very feisty, and he had a great love for life. In fact, the smile that you see on the screen is one of the things that we have been told by several, hundreds of people actually, that is what they remember about him, is that his smile, and that he was the life of the room. He was a connector of people. And he very much was the connector of people, to the point that he didn't want people to be unseen or unheard. He wanted people to belong and feel connected in pretty much all settings. And that it was so devastating to not just our family, but to the community at large, because none of us, from the school to friends to family to people that were friends with Isaac that we had never met, it was just such a devastating loss. And part of our story that is important, and I hope helps all of you, is that Isaac was very transparent. We were very close. We had regular conversations in our home because he did have a diagnosis of depression and anxiety. And we had some pretty real conversations about, do you have thoughts of harm? And lots of check-ins, just because our goal was to keep him safe. And we felt that he was safe. We did genetic testing to make sure, from a medication standpoint, that whatever was being introduced into his body would work well with his genetics. And so he had counseling. He was involved in sports. He had just graduated and had wonderful grades. The only warning signs that we know from that night is that he had a fight with his girlfriend. And it was that moment that things went south. And in that moment, he did exactly what most people do. And he did reach out and ask for somebody to talk to him. And that individual believed that they talked him out of hurting himself. And then they let him go to sleep. And we know that he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And we also believe that the night that he took his life, he had an undiagnosed encephalitis, which very much could have complicated his thought processes in addition to his mental health. And we also know that prior to that night, Isaac had never loaded a gun, used a gun unsupervised. And so for him to choose this means, it was completely unheard of, because this had never presented. There were no indicators of self-harm prior to that night. And, you know, had perhaps the weapon been secure, maybe the situation would have been different. They were house sitting for very dear friends of ours that do not have children. And I think one of the things that it brought to light is that whether you have children or not, being able to secure items or weapons, things that are very high in lethality, that, you know, securing those items, because you never know who's going to come across your path or be in your home. And you never know what, you know, what the situation can unfold to be. We, you know, the other thing to take away from our story is that Isaac, yes, they all get very skilled at hiding things that they don't want to discuss. But the other part of the story is that he, in the months leading up to that fateful day, he visited the doctor frequently because he kept saying that he didn't feel well. He complained of headaches, pressure in his head, a little bit of moodiness, things that, you know, you can associate with some mental health symptoms, and from the moodiness and kind of irritability. And I think that from what we know in hindsight, that, you know, better assessments and screenings, not just from mental health providers, but from all providers who have contact with our kids and with people, having those hard conversations and fine tuning what those assessment skills look like can be life-saving, and they can be life-changing for some individuals. And making that connection and being viable, and helping that person realize that, yes, there are hard times, there are hard emotions, and we don't always feel our best, but those hard times do pass, and that there is light on the backside of these hard days. And we, as a family, formed He Who Laughs to help people embrace that. We, through active fundraising, we champion mental wellness by sharing the National Suicide Lifeline publicly. We, our community, unfortunately, in Marysville, Ohio, which is in Union County, every one of our major school districts has been touched by suicide. And we developed shirts that had the word United on it to remind people that suicide knows no boundaries and knows no limits. And it doesn't matter where you live or whether you're in Ohio or out of Ohio, that the numbers are staggering. But we want to remind people to stay united in the fight and in coming together, and that we are stronger together. And we are stronger together for our kids and the people that we need to help be advocates for during these challenging times. And so through some of those efforts, we help pay for counseling. We help pay for holistic means to supplement medical care, from acupuncture to massage to transcranial magnetic stimulation. We do a lot of different things so that individuals can just be well-rounded, and that they can be physically well and mentally well. Unfortunately, we know firsthand that just because somebody looks okay on the outside is not an indicator of what's going on the inside. And I just appreciate the chance that I can share this story, that I'm able to share my son and our heart's mission with all of you. And I hope that through our words and if you will, our grief story, that it helps to save somebody else so that they don't have to live without their child.